Soaring friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. About the European Union, highlighted in the float of the Spanish newspaper El País, is respected as a reference political nightmare. The decision of the American President Donald Trump and the President of the Russian Federation Putin in Budapest. Oyster on the territory of the European Union. However, the Europeans themselves will not be brothers of a greedy fate in the Ukvali is not the solution of the principles for Europe. As well as the Russian dictator, unleashing the greatest part of the blame in another light, blame on the European continent, and not on the territory of the United States. Girlfriend, say summit on the territory of the cleaning service. I am following the boycott of important political initiatives within both the European Union and NATO. Collective approach to the Russian Federation. Orban made such decisions after boycotting the COB of the European Union with Ukraine and that Republic and Moldova, even before eating through to the object. On the 3rd, the situation looks like a reference political lobbying of Viktor Orban's interests from the side of his longtime henchman Donald Trump. Orban's party has overgrown because the main opposition forces of Ukraine are the Tisha party by 10 Sudkov points. And it is really possible to bring out even the upcoming parliamentary elections. And you will be in the cleaners already in the 2026 kind in the choice will vote for the opposition. And not for Orban's party, and the rich political nightmare of the cleaners for the topic is just going to be beaten. Donald Trump is following Petra, the marginals and the populace of the far right, straight across the European continent. And the same is not you horseshoe American president with the knowledge of the collapse of the European project. With a single European Ukraine, and it will be easier for him to dilute, and we know you and blackmail. And in the dark, the interests of Donald Trump completely fall out of Putin's interest. It can be explained by the fact that Viktor Orban is Trump's favorite and a political lover of the Russian one. On the 4th, there is a serious torture of the fact that Putin has been driven to Budapest by his rank. For the European Ukrainians, I still have a long route, so as not to rain on the windy expanse of the European Union. And a short one, say, through the territory of Poland, and through the territory of Romania, will become a reference belittled to the fact that the view of the Russian president is in flight. Won't be able to be such a member of the sample on the style of Putin and Trump. And about Putin's empty summer through the windy stretch of Ukraine of the European Union, means once again to demonstrate all these warrants of the International Criminal Court, all these sanctions against the Russian president on. And it is extremely possible for Putin to grow this situation in order to mock the Europeans. One thing is still possible in such situations, the valuable political paranoia of the Russian president. And simply not on the territory of Ukraine, the European Union at its anchor. Well, it is well known that the PPR Europeans overestimate the Tilky Zustrik between Putin and Trump in appearance, simply because the Russian president is drunk. The real actions of his American counterpart, and that Donald Trump simply did not work with Putin in Budapest. At a discount, the reality of the Sovereign Secretary of the United States, Marco Rubio, is firm the point of view of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Sergei Lavrov, and it became clear that Putin is ready for the Russian-Ukrainian Vienna. All these thoughts about the directory, When you meet the European Union of Trump's voluntarist decision, we feel anonymous. Officially, European leaders support the Trump initiative. I hope to be allowed to bring peace to the richly suffering Ukrainian land. Dakey about the results of the rest of Trump's foreign policy days in a voice and without enthusiasm. So the federal chancellor is not labeled Friedrich Merz. I would be one of the European politicians who still took the fate of the sweep firm Vladimir Bucket after the Ukrainian president, having completed his difficult sweep firm, his American colleagues said that the oyster and Trump ended wrong. I and that European Ukraine PPR like a great support for Ukraine until 1 o'clock. America could have caught them at once, not the federal chancellor, could not straighten out the warehouses of how Donald Trump went to an open public search for the Russian president. I practically did not have all the pogroms after the Russian president, after talking with his American counterpart, and in a tame manner for himself, in the manner of a well-lit state committee, told Trump about the successes of the American president, about his peacemaking. We also know that Trump is ready to exchange, and more logically political decisions for compliments. And he has a literally fallow kind of stiffness. In fact, there are no leaders of the authoritarian retinue with the rear. On the lead about the oyster Trump, Putin still in Moscow, call the date 30. This means that the American president from the Russian Asianist summit has left Malaysia. The summit is important on the very fact that his work plans are behind the scenes for an oyster between Donald Trump, then the head of the People's Republic of China Xi Jinping. However, the head of the People's Republic of China and his American colleagues are not aware of the new destruction of economic relations between Beijing and Washington. And I also oyster miss Trump and Xi Jinping productive and important decisions, even before the normalization of Sino-American relations. According to Zasuna, Putin talked about his contacts with Donald Trump and the very fact of holding an oyster, and the simpler Xi Jinping and Donald Trump are still Malaysia. Diakuyu. Finish on the topic of the channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to my social on the channel. Patreon helps to develop these resources. The sponsorship function itself, and we will help you.